Yeah, welcome, welcome, welcome. We hope we're live now, and I guess we are. Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's beautiful mastermind on keeping my center. You've probably already noted this little piece of advice that we have down there in the corner. Get out pen and paper. We have chosen this very special topic today because it's been the primary area of growth that we figured out when working with so many leaders, especially founders, but also like mid-management across Europe. So let's dive right into it. What do we have to expect for today? As always, we're going to be breaking down our parts into two things. Number one, there's a theory on what is it that makes us give away our center, and what is it that we have to understand about ourselves so that we are becoming better at keeping it. And number two, a coaching exercise. So we're going to, as always, condense all this knowledge that we've distilled from reading the internet into, in this time today, two self-coaching exercises that you can use to recenter yourself. Now, who or what is the ARC? Hopefully you have heard about us, maybe not. So we are this international mastermind of purpose-driven individuals who really strive to build something in their lives that inspires themselves and others. So the way we do this is we are running international boot camps and coachings, as well as online accelerator programs. And we are entertaining a really, really thrilling community of pretty amazing people. So if that's something you're curious about, you're so welcome. And you can join us once. This is kind of like the low entry point by signing up for our newsletter, where we send around regular self-coaching exercises like this one today. And also, if you want to go the fast track, feel free to schedule a coffee chat with one of our team members, where we will talk to you for a pretty long and extensive time to really figure out what is it that you want and whether the art can support you in your personal growth. Now, with these words, let's go back to the topic and start with this image. You might all be familiar with the idea of keeping your physical center. If you're into martial arts, this will be especially familiar to you. But what about your emotional center? And we like to call the emotional center what we focus our attention and our direct, immediate experience on. So this is crucial when we give away our center, because we do this so frequently, right? We all know this feeling when we are taking something that's somewhere area in this tummy area here and just giving it, just handing it over to someone else. So we like to say we give our center away when we care more about what others think than about us than what we do. Also, when we adapt our behaviors to their wishes or their logic, right? I'm sure you have examples for this in your own life or examples of others. When we question even maybe our own perception, right? Not because there was an actual reason for it, but because we seek to be accepted, loved, given attention, heard, validated, recognized, respected, followed, or feared. So basically, you will probably understand how we're coming up with a list here of things where we're getting attached to where the response of the other person becomes more important than us upholding to our own values. Also, when we are arguing with people in our head, when we are planning a future conversation or seeking for retribution, right? And about planning the future conversation, this can go in all directions, right? I'm also meaning things like, if you are talking to somebody maybe who doesn't reciprocate your love, or somebody who you're maybe even really, 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 really looking forward to, right? I'm not saying joy is a bad thing, but if we're so overly joyful, we are again giving away our center. When we experience high levels of stress, sadness, fear, or distracting excitement, right? That's what I meant. So anything that gives us these crazy emotions where we literally forget, like, oh, to check in with ourselves. What is it who I am? What is it that I actually want? How is it that I actually want to behave? Boom, we've given away our center. Yeah. So basically, when we are triggered in any interaction, and what we are doing is we're handing over the authority over our own thoughts and behavior to somebody or something else. Now, this seems pretty complex, and I know I've given a very, very wide definition of what giving away our center means, and it is actually pretty wide. So it's a big art to build up the awareness on what it means to live from a no, I want to say self-centered life, but what I mean is a life where we're actually keeping our center and doing this in a responsible and mature way. So here's one of the quotes that you might have seen before on social media, because we did post it. We lose our center not because people take it from us, but because we readily give it to them. Let's think about that for a second. This is an important thing to realize, because in almost all of the time, we will accuse other people of taking away our center. It's like, they were so powerful, I couldn't. They were so seductive, I couldn't, And the truth is, it really has nothing to do with them. It is what you are willing to do. It's like, it doesn't matter how seductive or how powerful somebody else is. It's what makes you trip over that line where you think that you have no more control, no more mastery of your own response. So in order to understand this a little bit better, let's ask the question of why. Why are we giving away our center? Why do we even do this? The thing that seems so harmful to us. Number one, we feel, at least to a certain extent, no longer responsible to take care of our state, our moods, our attitudes, our decisions. Even, and we might, and this is how we write it down, how we might trick ourselves into thinking our actions, right? So the most common examples is when we meet very powerful authoritarian people. It's like, just do as they say, so we don't have to argue, so we don't have to stand up for ourselves, right? Because that can be pretty exhausting if we're not acquainted with the idea of reasoning, where our opinion comes from. Also, we definitely hand our initiative to change something, right? And I like to say, even if it's just for a very small second, it is as though we become them, right? So we kind of take over their perception, and without actually critically asking, is that a good thing to do, right? So in order to get that response that our animal brain and our body really wants, we're, boom, in the course of a second, exchanging what we used to believe with other beliefs. And I'm not saying we do that all of the time, but this is what can happen. And also, and this is probably one of the most common reasons we can avoid being held accountable, right? We just we don't want to argue, So, and we don't have to take care of ourselves, right? So there are, maybe for instance, relationships that function like this very oftentimes. Maybe relationships in your circle of friends or your surroundings where it's really based on the transaction of somebody protecting somebody else, right? And this is a very common way of and let's be self-critical, how women give away their center to men, right? Men tend to give their center to women sexually, and also for being liked, and we all genders obviously tend to do that, but in this one example, seeking for protection seems to be something that women seem to be particularly passionate about. We outsource confrontation, having to bear the consequences of being fired, demoted, made feel inadequate, all these terrible things that might potentially happen to us if we stand strong, hold our center, and think again, what is it that I actually want to stand up for? Interesting question. Why do we collect other people's centers? Why do other people do that? And let's be honest, we all do it. And what motivates us? Number one, these people whose centers we collect are no longer threatening, right? So we are gathering all these followers around us, and they don't take their own decisions anymore. They're basically just supporting us more or less blindly. Fantastic. As I said here, they postpone critical thinking, right? So they're no longer a threat to us. And we don't really have to feel pressure from them to evaluate our actions, statements, or beliefs, right? So the big fat underlying reason why we give away our centers is safety, right? Why we give away our centers and why we collect other people's center. And really what we're doing is we're engaging in a transactional relationship where we're making a deal, right? It's just like I stop having an opinion and in return I get protection, or like I give you protection in return of you stopping to have your own opinion. Um, and yeah, like the methods, like I listed a couple of methods, and this happens, right? The use of powers is really, really common. Yeah, um, threats, constructing a seductive and inescapable system of financial or job security. Yeah, uh, I think we all know at least examples of this. Offering love, intimacy, protection, or spare you from their emotional outbursts, right? People who are the constant victim are just as much taking other people's centers as they say they're giving it away. So think about that. All right. So if the primary reason why we give away our centers is safety, what else is there to say about this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, we do have a little graphic here. Person A giving away their center. You are responsible. I'm safe now. Person B saying, you can't threaten me. Now I'm safe. Yay. The transaction that's happening place. But um, let's think about a little, what is the price that we are actually paying for that? I think it's easy to guess what the price is when we're giving away our center. And it's, I like to say, keeping yourself dumb. Yeah, it's keeping yourself below your potential. You're readily moving yourself into a position of powerlessness, right? And the long-term consequence is that we constantly grieve our unlived potential, right? We constantly will have to live in a thing of, well, I could do more. Probably there is a way of, what if, dot, 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 right? This kind of really nagging feeling of, wow, I didn't give my everything. Now, what if you're taking other people's centers and collecting other people's centers? I like to say it's surrounding yourself with mindless followers. Yeah, it's you're being followed by people who you disrespect. And we tend to disrespect people who are transactionally following us because we know the moment we would take away that thing we are providing them with, they would stop following us. So it's not about us, it's about what we can do for them, right? So that becomes pretty boring. And this is also why these transactional relationships are not fulfilling. Yeah. Why, if the only reason when you are working for your boss is because of the money, you're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be, chances are you're not going to be particularly great at it. So when we collect centers, one thing that people express is that they feel lonely at the top. Yeah. We might argue if they're really at the top, because the top they have created for themselves is kind of constructed. But probably like that is kind of the feeling that we express when we are surrounding with like ourselves with dumb people. Yeah, as we would call them. Um, and in the same way, we would end up constantly grieve our unlived potential. And that is because again, we are not living our potential. Just that this time it's other people's fault. Yeah, it's because they're too dumb. They're not clever enough. They're not fast enough. They're not educated enough. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Because we tend to not take our followers seriously when we just collect their centers. Now, um, what I wanted to express is really the long-term consequences of either constantly giving away our centers or collecting them is that we live in alienation with ourselves and others. Yeah, this is something that is something that's hard to spot. Symptoms of this might be when, yeah, you feel like nothing can excite you. When we feel that most of our relationships aren't of high quality. When the job we do or the mission that we follow seems not very meaningful and not very fulfilling. So this is what we mean by living in alienation. And today I really want to equip you guys with 2 exercises. Like, what if I am in such a state? What if there are areas in our life where I have created this kind of alienation? And therefore, we want to suggest, 2 ways of recentering. The first one is about how to spot what are the areas where, as a result of me giving away my center or me collecting other people's centers mindlessly, I have come to a place of alienation and just, grown apart from who I actually am. And the second one we're going to share in a moment, that's about keeping my center in an everyday life situation. But let's start with the first, recentering. So the first point would be to ask ourselves the question, what are these areas in my life where I live in alienation with myself and or others? Or what are the areas in my life where I don't seem to be able to escape a lack of fulfillment, right? So the classics are to be found in work and relationships, just that you know. The second one is, what are the specific ways of how I am giving away my center? What habits, behaviors, or pivotal actions have I indulged in? Yeah, think about it. And by pivotal action, I mean something that changes your pathway in a big way. So, for instance, did you study the thing you studied because you loved it, or because your parents wanted you? Right? Did you take that job because you felt it was really in line with what you're building, what you want to create, or because you thought you had to in any other way? What beliefs have I cultivated so I could avoid facing self-responsibility? And this is the tough one. So, because by answering this question, that's when we get to the exact point why we give away our center. Like, that's what we are scared of, that self-responsibility. Third, who or which narrative have I given my center to? So usually, and maybe that's not for you, but usually there is a bigger story. Yeah, it's like, I have to do this job because otherwise I don't have money, or I can't quit my job because I will never find the same cool colleagues or the same crazy salary, or being an entrepreneur is going to be too crazy, or staying an entrepreneur is going to be whatever. So I hope it's kind of clear. Usually my behaviors, my actions are happening because of a deeper narrative that I have cultivated about myself or the world, and it's pretty interesting to hack that, to understand what that is, in order to really get to the root of why you're giving away your center, and be able to break it from there. Yeah, another one. What am I avoiding? What consequences? Which confrontation? In what specific ways did my fearful animal brain seek and potentially find safety temporarily? Right? This is another question to really try to hack what you're actually scared of. And then, what are the costs of alienation that I'm incurring today? And here comes the switch. What is the decision I'm ready to make? And if it helps, what is the decision that you may be not ready to make? Sometimes we find it easy to commit to certain things, but we also know secretly that it's not really going to happen. Like the 10th time you're vowing to go to the gym. So it's like, sometimes it helps to understand what is the decision you're not yet ready. Like, maybe you're not yet ready to forgive your ex or something, So, and that is fine, right? It is really beautiful to understand, hey, what is my next potential for healing as well? Now, these are 5 important questions to answer if you want to recenter. It's going to tell you what are the areas where you're giving away your center, why you're doing it, or in other ways, what's the fear that's so passionately driving you to do it again and again and again. And what is the decision you're ready to make to actually get yourself out of that vicious cycle? Now, what are the steps to keeping my center? Right? This is what I've just talked about, is about readjusting. It's about changing your compass needle, maybe with a little bit of violence. Hopefully not. But yeah, you know what I mean. What are the steps to keeping my center? And we like that there are just a couple, really. Number one, we have to notice who or what you've given your center to. Yeah, you acknowledge that nobody has taken it from you, but you have willingly given it to them, right? So step number one is just to be like, oh, I'm giving away my center. Let me just become aware of what hooked me so badly. Like, why do I want safety so badly right now? Like, what makes me think that I am unsafe? Second, notice the adaptive behavior that and how you're harming yourself with it, and maybe also the other person by withholding an authentic response. That is step number two. Notice what specifically you're doing to prevent authentic connection. And three, sense into your physical center. So actually this tends to really help. We got this from a training event that we've attended a while ago. And it really, really helps to just like center into your physical center for a second. And from there, answer the question, what needs to be stood up for now? What is it that I want to stand up for? What is it that I want to be a force of right now? And then you say yes or no, right? So you make a move inspired from the value that you want to be a force of, and you don't make a move from the fear that might have been guiding you in the first place, right? So the challenge with this is, of course, that all these four steps ideally happen within a split of a second. And it's definitely something we want to train. However, my tip is, if you have a situation where you know you're easily giving away your center, just start with step number one. Like, just notice, oh, I'm giving away my center. And that will already do a lot, And then since I'm assuming this is a situation that comes up repeatedly, after you've noticed, you can go to step number two, right? So this will happen more and more frequently. And I don't know about you, but when I tried this out, I managed to talk from my center peacefully yet strong after 3 times. So obviously, I don't know, like, this is just my own inner judgment, but I had to practice 2 times, and the third time, like, wow, this is really working, and I love myself in this situation. I feel so strong, so empowered. It was so different. And what was actually super interesting was the response I got was so much more what I had hoped for, right? This is, I guess, another chapter, another workshop, but when we speak from our center, we are so much more empowered, we're so much stronger, and we still can be peaceful. We don't have to be angry. Because this is a thing that a lot of people have questions about. What if I meet resistance? So what if I start having my own opinion and somebody is against it? Well, it's that thing that comes with having an own opinion. But how to navigate through these wild waters? Number one, I like to say, breathe deeply. And we basically start sort of like at step number 3. Breathe deeply and ask yourself, what am I standing up for right now? So you just go back to step number 3. And then, does the fact that I just get resistance change this? I mean, it's fine to, you don't have to fight for everything that you want crazily, and you don't have to. But it's good that if you stop fighting, you know why. Also, if you continue fighting, you know why. So this is what this is about. So does the resistance changes? Why? Why not? And make your next move based on your answer. So like I said before, it's really going back to step number 3 and reliving step number 4. So what is the decision based on the resistance? Does that change anything if I'm triggered again? Like, do I now want safety? Like, am I ready to do this? Am I just like, okay, whatever. Or I'm like, oh, I'm so scared, I'd rather not like touch this. And that is fine. The idea behind this is really to make moves from a centered position. And this is precisely what we're hitting at. The clue to being centered is not holding up your guard, but to be clear on your values, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be the resignated, stubborn idiot. No, it doesn't mean that you have to be exactly like the boss you would hate to have. No, you can speak from an inspired and centered place and stand up for who you want to be and be peaceful and have your shit together and not have to give in to resistance. And maybe you want to give in to resistance. And boom, I think I somewhat explained this. Yeah, but I really want to make this clear. Keeping your center doesn't mean to be stubborn. And like we promised, there's a little bonus to this. We want to actually draw the line to what we would call true leadership and center-inspired leadership, right? This is important for leaders, right? True leaders, as we like to say, is keep their center and don't ask others for theirs. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of leaders who are leading based on this transaction, like I give you protection, or even like if you follow me, you can build that amazing thing. Yeah, rather than like asking, what is it that you want to build? Is there an overlap? And these are nuances really, but I like to say they are nuances in words, but they are by far not nuances when it comes to the emotional experience of that conversation, right? I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about when I say there's leaders who just let you shine next to themselves, so don't have to have their ego in front of them, and otherwise don't feel okay, right? And these are the kind of leaders that we're actually talking about here, right? So we like to say true leaders keep their center and don't ask others for theirs. They are in charge and want you to be in charge. They shine and let you shine too. There's loads of leaders who said, I want you to be in charge, but they don't let you shine next to them. Like them telling you have to be in charge is just like their way of domineering, right? So I think if you're, maybe take it the other way around, if you are a leader who gets the feedback, wow, your team really shines next to you, you're probably one of those guys who is keeping their center and not asking others for theirs. And the reason why we're saying it so explicitly is we really cannot outsource our fear of uncertainty as a team member or as a leader. I use this example, but like it really applies to all sorts of areas in our life. But we can build authentic relationship with those around us so that if things happen, more brains can be smarter than one only. So I guess by now you're all waiting for the self-coaching exercise, which is coming. Because yes, let's get started. And these are these two exercises that we want to leave you with today. So if you are curious about doing them at home, wow, you're so welcome. Also, if you go to our blog, which will be linked below this video, you will find a self-coaching guide that summarizes all of this, which you can download. And yeah, we're so happy to share. Now, these two exercises, as I've said before, embarking on my recentering journey is one. These are the 5 steps I've outlined before, or like the 5 questions we want to ask. Let's say the 5 block of questions, admittedly, we want to ask to understand what is this. What are the areas where I have given away my centers that as a result of that live in alienation, and what is the decision that I'm ready to make? And the 4 ways how we can practice to keep our everyday center, right? So I'm not reading those out again. If you want, take a screenshot or download our self-coaching guide. Yeah, I suggest to not actually brainstorm more than 15 minutes on these questions because, your intuition will be right. Trust that your intuition gives you the best answers you can come up with. Yeah, and that was it for today. We hope you enjoyed this session. We definitely did. If you're curious about learning more about ARC, there's always the opportunity to sign up for our newsletter, thearc.site/love letter. And if you are ready to embark on your own journey of getting started with the ARC, come and join us for a coffee chat, thearc.site/coffee chat, and let's see if you want to take your life to the next level as well. So, with these words, it's been so wonderful to be able to share this with you today, and we can't wait to see you for the next Mastermind. Bye bye.